It's a big question whether at what point, truly at what point, the Carcenti analogy is just magnificent. If there is software that seems to infect a serious number of computers and destroy the hard drives, saying that it doesn't destroy all or even most of the computers that it is in doesn't quite say that there's nothing wrong with the virus. Or excuse me, nothing wrong with the software. Why this is not allowable, you ask the New York Times, you ask Princeton University, you ask your local university, because there is a cowardice in confronting evil on the left. That is why. It's been the one consistent of my life. Same thing happened with communism. Just competition between capitalism and communism. That was it. There wasn't a moral significance to the Cold War. And this is the crisis of our time. Can we confront the fact that Islam needs to be reformed? And there are wonderful Muslim reformers. It's not like they're not out there, but they're ignored in favor of the apologists like CARE. That's who the Western media turn to in the United States. Council on American Islamic Relations, where anything that is said that is critical of Islam, you are considered a bigot, hater, on the par of an anti-Semite, racist. And they get the time on CNN. They get the time at the New York Times. Yeah, there isn't much courage in this world. That's the rarest of the good traits, and a lot of nice people, but not many courageous people. The guys at Charlie Hebdo, and I didn't share their views, and I would not do what they did, but it doesn't matter. They were making a fight for freedom of speech, and therefore I'm with them. This country, the United States, was founded on the belief that God wants us free. Now, that is not a belief that permeates the Islamic world. Is that fair to say, or does that render you a bigot? By the way, it doesn't permeate, unfortunately, chunks of our world either. The left has taught in Christianity and in Judaism, God wants us equal, not God wants us free. That's the religious left. Not to mention the secular left, for whom God is a non-issue. New York Times piece on this. Oh, there's going to be, people are asking questions. I love that the title is mind-boggling. Raising questions within Islam after France shooting. The way it's phrased is astonishing. I read it to you. The rash of horrific attacks in the name of Islam is spurring an anguished debate among Muslims here in the heart of the Islamic world. This is from Cairo. About why their religion appears cited so often. Appears cited as a cause for violence and bloodshed. Not is. Appears cited. Gee, why would that be? Can anybody think why would that be that anybody would have such a citation? We'll be back in a moment. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. So here, this is, so they quote El-Sisi of Egypt, who gave this very powerful talk that there needs to be a Muslim revolution within. All right, so now listen to this. This is the New York Times asking this question. So here's the New York Times analysis. Others, though, insist that the sources of the violence are alienation and resentment, not theology. They argue that the authoritarian rulers of Arab states, who have tried for decades to control Muslim teaching and the application of Islamic law, have set off a violent backlash expressed in religious ideas and language. I cannot tell you this, the vapidity, the vapidness, the inanity of that comment. And this is what your child is learning. This is exactly what your child is learning at every university virtually in this country if this comes up in class. Has nothing to do with Islam. It has to do with colonialism. I'm coming to that in a moment. Colonialism. Get that? Colonialism. India was colonized. Why aren't there Hindu murderers all over the world? Same colonizer, too, the British. This is the crap, the lies that infest our universities. The most morally upside-down institutions in our society, of any stature, obviously. They argue that promoted by groups like the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda, that discourse echoes through Muslim communities as far away as New York or Paris, whose influence and culture still loom over much of the Muslim world. Oh, well, why is that? Islamic State and Al-Qaeda's influence looms over much. Their influence looms over much of the Muslim world. Well, isn't there a fertile breeding ground then? Aren't they appealing to some basic ideas that, in their words, much of the Muslim world finds credible? Then they quote, doesn't even... all right, I'll read it to you. An official of Tunisia's mainstream Islamist party, Said Ferjani, said, some people who feel crushed or ignored will go toward extremism, and they use religion because that is what they have at hand. If you are attacked and you have a fork in your hand, you will fight back with a fork. So you're fighting back You slaughter people in a Jewish supermarket, and you're fighting back against Tunisian Muslim rulers. Oh God, I tell you, this is the New York Times. Now wait, we're not done. It gets worse. Khaled Fahmy, Fahmy, an Egyptian historian, was teaching at New York University on September 11th, 2001. After which American sales of the Quran spiked because readers sought religious explanations for the attack on New York. Wait till I give you the rest. As important as confronting the burgeoning, it's so spreading that it is only the willful ignoring of the staggering numbers of slaughtered innocents, children, men, women, grandparents, women used as sex slaves routinely by people like Boko Haram and the Islamic State, crucifixions, torture, all done by profoundly religious people. And there are more of them. It's a burgeoning movement. And you might recall, incidentally, that more or less it started with the blowing up of Israelis, which bored humanity. It was just, that's really too bad. And gee, what's on the menu today? And then it went elsewhere. And now the biggest victims are Muslims. The people who most of the time cheered on Palestinians who engaged in terror. And as I asked at the time, how come no Christian Palestinians blew themselves up? Presumably they were under the same terrible occupation as Muslims. Never got an answer to that. Never. Whenever I get any answer at all, it's, well, George Habash on the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, he was a Palestinian Christian. First, he was an atheist, but okay, he was a Christian, fine. He was culturally Christian. He was not, or ethnically, even though obviously Christianity is not an ethnicity. But still, his people did not blow themselves up. And it was, so there people, you're not allowed to ask questions because people are afraid. People are afraid. That's what it is. Fear renders prostitution normal, and I have much more sympathy for prostitutes, much more, than I do for many of these professors. There's no comparison on a moral level who will be judged worse. So listen to this one. Khaled Fahmy, Egyptian historian, We try to explain that they are asking the wrong question, he said. Religion was just a veneer for anger at the dysfunctional Arab states left behind by colonial powers and the Orientalist condescension many Arabs still feel from the West. That's what it is. You know, I'm telling you, that Orientalist condescension. This is a professor at New York University. He's outdone, though. The professors outdo each other. M. Stephen Fish, political scientist, University of California, wrote a book, Are Muslims Distinctive? And said, absolutely not. Is Islam violent? I would say absolutely not. There is very little empirical evidence that Islam is violent. This is a professor at Berkeley. Good news, we have a happiness hour coming up. I'm Dennis Prager.